Hi everyone, Jason Howes here today with Paul Fuller, Chief Revenue Officer of Membrain. Great to catch up with you again, Paul.
Absolutely, Jason. Love it whenever we get a chance to have a conversation.
And what's really scary about this, Paul, is that it's been about 4 months since the last webinar we did.
Absolutely. You blink your eyes and it's tomorrow. So today we're talking a little bit about sales leadership and empowering sales leadership. Is that the direction we're going to take this?
Absolutely, because last time was about empowering sales professionals. This time we're talking about some of the most important people within the business, as well as sales professionals, is sales leadership, a key area we do a lot of work in. Unfortunately, an area as well that most sales leaders have never had any professional training or development in how to manage and lead a team. The same way as most salespeople haven't had any professional development. So like a lot of us, including ourselves, we all end up in a role without any training. And what we're here to do is to really talk about how technology is working for us to help our clients to be able to create that really clear path of what good practice looks like, and being able to generate and automate technology to empower leaders. So Paul, just a little bit about yourself just before we kick off, and then we'll jump straight into the session today.
Thank you, Jason. I have been in sales longer than I care to admit, but I started carrying a bag in the late 90s while I was in college, and then got into technology sales in 2003. Started my own sales as a service company and did that for a long time. And now I'm with Membrain, a Chief Revenue Officer here. We provide the world's best B2B growth platform and partner with amazing people like Jason that allow us to really tie in their methodology, their ability to train, coach, and drive leadership and drive sales teams into a platform that helps and enables that discipline. And so what we really are about, and what Membrain is about elevating the sales profession by providing platforms that create learning and tie in that accountability and collaboration aspect between the leadership and their teams to really drive scalable growth.
I personally, myself, I've used probably about 5 or 6 different CRMs, whether that was in my past position that I held as national sales manager and or some of the clients we've worked with. So I've used Salesforce, I've used the HubSpots, I've used the Zohos, I've used a fair few of them. And look, they're all good, not bad products, but I mean, Membrain's next level. And in reality, the priority for my business, our executive sales, is to bring the best tools to the table for sales leaders we deal with. And for me, I'm really excited to go through Membrain because I think, as I said, it's as far as the platform and what the upgrades you're consistently doing, and now the new Elevate program, it's really a great time for businesses to invest in technology and systems and process instead of, hiring salespeople or sales leaders and hoping they're going to come in and miraculously fix all their problems. It's just not going to happen. So I'm really keen to get in today and talk more about it.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the philosophy of this. I think there's one thing that I want to bring out, which is we have a choice as an organization, or as sales in general. And we really there's kind of at a fork in the road, right? There's a lot of technology that is trying to empower more of the same old, or just to look at things a little differently. If you sent 20 emails that weren't effective, or maybe you got one response, let's send 400 of them and let's empower them via AI. That is not us. That is not what we do, because it's not really what we believe in. We believe in empowering your team to be better, right? To do more, to be better, to hone their skills. That B2B salesperson, we think, is really incredible, and we need to empower them with the ability to make the most of every conversation. So that is what we're about, and we really focus there. And we put out some great stuff that I think it's a critical at this time in the market, because organizations are looking at ways to, hey, I have my people. How do I get more out of those people without just being a spammer on the market or just driving them into the ground? So the only way to get more out of those people is to upskill them, help them get better, and help them do that through systematic ways of empowering.
Couldn't agree more, Paul. And, I'm a big sports fan, big football fan. We're at the start of our season here, very passionate about football, AFL, love it. You've got to you've got to have your best team on the field, and that's really important in the right positions, but they've also got to be fit. If they're injured and they're not up to the game, well, they shouldn't be on the ground. And that's a big part of what we're seeing at the moment. And you're seeing a lot of set plays as well, where they're doing a lot of work on set plays. No real different to sales, you know what I mean? We should be able to predict where it's heading and what needs to happen to be able to get through that sales process to be able to win that new business. And again, I said, I love sport, and I think it's always a really good way to look at it, because, right now with businesses, you're coming in towards the end of the season, because our financial year ends at the end of June. Right now, a lot of companies are either behind budget or they are maybe single digit ahead, which is not a bad result in the current market at the moment over here. It's tough, right? I mean, businesses are doing it tough. Sales leaders are struggling to get growth in business. And a lot of it's coming back to a whole range of areas which I won't go right into. But again, having the right people on the roll, having the right tools for them to train with and use. And you should always be training. And I think that's a big thing. And we want to be better. And I had a conversation the other day with a CEO, and it was more about what impact would it have on your business if your best sales professionals were 10 to 15% more effective. And he said it'd have a huge impact on my business, right? And I think a lot of the times we've been focusing on the underperformers, but now it's like, well, how much better can your top performers be?
Well, and I'll take that. I mean, I know you're speaking footy, right? You're speaking Aussie rules, and I think that's the same. If I take it to the U.S., we football teams that have built dynasties, right? And so the most recent one is the Kansas City Chiefs. Before that was the New England Patriots. And what they are really good at, Jason, which is really interesting, they all talk about following the process. They all talk about getting so good at the basics and the plays that they have that allows them to be creative in a moment, right? So they are so good, and they have everything in their toolbox that they need, and they have the base, but it allows that creativity because they're so good at the process. I relate it directly to sales, and I relate it directly to what you're talking about. And so one of the things that we should go into, that I hope we could go in today, is how do we help sales leaders make the most of the talent that they have by getting them, empowering them, and arming them with the right tools and the right plays to run. How we empower people to run those plays and coach to those plays really well.
Okay, Paul, so keen to dive in and have a look at some more information in Membrain and see how Membrain helps sales leaders to be able to coach more effectively.
All right. Well, let's dive in. That's music to my ears here, Jason. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I'm going to ask you if you can see Daniel Day-Lewis. Well, let's set some basics, and I don't care what system you're using. One of the critical basics things that you need to set is what we call a sales process, and empower that by a methodology. If you're not basing your pipeline off of a defined process, you're missing the mark, because you're not calling the plays, right? You're not saying, hey, here is the core play that we need to run together to be able to do this. And Membrain does that, and Jason works with us in a lot of different ways, but he does that. We are able to set up sales processes across multiple jobs to be done. So whether you're prospecting, setting up a process for that, whether you're running your pipeline, or whether you're running your accounts and trying to grow your accounts. So the key thing is, how do you set up processes that have steps and stages and can also help people with the coaching right directly in them? So what is that? What are the coaching and training directly in them? So if somebody's going on for an exploration call, we might want to define exactly what that is and what our best practice is, and allow them also to ask for coaching on that as well. So dive in and say, hey, can I get some coaching here? And ask my direct manager. But being able to set this up and to set up stages and steps is one of the things that's critical in your methodology, so you can actually take a leadership role and coach on it. So when you start to look at a pipeline for an organization, you should start to look at exactly where I am in that pipeline based on my process, And then you should also be able to look at individuals. And I'm going to go to Daniel Day-Lewis here and look exactly what Daniel Day-Lewis is and how he's performing against the goals we've set of him in using that process, right? Any good coach knows that you need to understand what Daniel Day is trying to do to ever help him do it, right? So I've set up a sales process, and now how do I coach him to that process? What are the goals that Daniel Day has to have uh, across the organization to really be good at what he's doing? So maybe we're going to set goals on creating sales projects. Maybe we're going to create goals on what our win rates are. Maybe we're going to create goals on what we call a discovery meeting, or whatever you call that in your organization, that very first part of running the play. Maybe we want to set goals for him on the end result, right? But what are those core things that we need to set goals on? And this goes right back to our footy analogy, right? Every single position on the team is generally graded in terms of the goals they have and their performance against those goals. But that's only one part of coaching. That's only one part of making them better. What every great coach also knows is that you need to know the person, right? So a person is performing a role, and that role has goals. Well, you have to know and understand the behavior of that person to do a really good job with that person. And you have to do this for sales teams to be great. Every person on the team you need to understand. So you need to create a system by which you do that. So however you do that, I'd highly recommend that you give yourself an assessment and the ability to assess, both self-assess, so Daniel Day can assess himself on this. What are the things he's great at? And what are the things, and the leader needs to assess that as well. But it should be objective, and each should do that. And you should find some areas for looking at this. And even the potential of tying in other assessments, tying in things like Objective Management Group or other great skills assessments that are out there in market to really understand who that person is. Right. So if I am going to coach a team systematically, and if you look at any good footy team, they're going to have a system that they put people together. They're going to have a playbook, right? So the sales process. They're going to have method of evaluating the skills and needs of their person. They're going to put goals out for the team, and then they're going to figure out a way overall to get there and to hit those goals together. Right? So those goals have to not just hit their personal goals, but have to hit the goals of the company. And what is that? Well, that's a plan. And so to be able to create and do plans and coaching plans for each member of the team, I've found in most sales organizations, it gets neglected. It gets absolutely thrown to the side. And great sales organizations don't, right? They take that step and they say, I have to know, what am I going to be doing? How am I going to be coaching for, this quarter, whatever it is? And then what are our results against that? So what are our mutual assigned tasks in this coaching plan that we're going to activate? And what are our sessions that we're taking that are getting us to? And when you can start to look at a team like that, Jason, it is magical. When you can start to say, hey, of everybody that I'm coaching, and this is really simple: green, yellow, red, right? 3 of them are nailing their goals and 2 of them are really missing. And you could start to look at a graph like this and say, Daniel Day-Lewis, man, these are all the coaching sessions we have had together, and this is his progression up the chart. This is fantastic. He's knocking it out of the park. John, on the other hand, is really sucking, and we're still investing the same amount of time. So maybe there is something different, or maybe it's an issue with John himself. Maybe he's just missing the goals. So when you start to look at something systematically like that, it gives you this magical ability to scale. And that's what scale is about. Scale is about being able to repeat great success and then take your learnings and teach people individually how to leverage that success. And so a platform like this is what we're doing with Elevate and Membrain. But again, you have to have the fundamentals there, regardless of you use Membrain or not. You have to have a process. So every team has to have this. What is a sales process? What are the milestones? What are the metrics? How do you outline that for their role? You have to have this ability to dive in and understand that person, their skills and behavior, set their goals, and then actually activate their goals together. Does that make sense?
That's a lot of good work there, Paul. And actually, late last year, I had a session with the sales team, and the COO actually looked at it and he goes, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that before." The problem is that this is available for your business. I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, "Oh no, I'll never get there. It's a dream." It can happen, and it can happen quickly, right? And I think that's the big thing. But it's like everything. If you want to sell on value, well, then you need to buy on value, and your team needs the best tools to succeed. So if you're still out there without any technology, or if you're out there with something that's scattered across 6 different platforms, or if you're out there in a contract with something that the team is not using because it's the wrong one, it's a B2C and not a B2B. I think you got to draw the line in the sand, and it really frustrates me personally when I'm trying to coach sales teams. If the technology isn't where it needs to be, I really can't do my job. Because I mean, it's okay to train someone, but if you can't embed it into the technology and the training, you really are behind the 8 ball. And I think we need to just stop the excuses, stop blaming other people, take responsibility for your own team. And I was talking to someone the other day, when we do a lot of recruiting as well as sales training, coaching. But I mean, instead of putting, tools of trade included into the package, why not offer the salesperson the best tool in the market? And that way, if they do not make it, which hopefully they do, but at least you can onboard them more effectively. You can see where they're at. You can help them instead of letting them sink and then throwing them out and bringing the next one in, which tends to happen. Business leaders have to invest in technology. And I think we flip back to where you said before, and I love some of the examples, Paul. Wouldn't mind if you just pull up some of those screens, because I want to talk in more detail about some of them, because they're so critical with the daily conversations we have with sales leaders. And what I think, and the one you got there is a really is a great area as well, as far as not being able to, not wait until the end of the month and go, "Oh, we didn't hit quota, why not?" This information is live, right? We should be able to see where our salespeople, where our sales leaders are at. And that way, if someone's on holidays or if someone leaves and someone comes in, the leader can pick up and take off and go instead of having to start again. And I think what Paul's looking at here, I've been having a lot of really good discussions lately with sales leaders. And if I look at our market here, if you're a company that has, a good market share, but you want to grow, well, the only way to do that is to either obviously move into new segments or products, or take the work off your opposition. And I think that's where a lot of salespeople really struggle at the moment, because they don't have any process, because they've never been taught, and there's no technology for them to be able to move through. It's just not going to happen. So you need to take that leap of faith and go, something has to change now, because the old ways are just not working anymore, let alone the fact that personally, I do think that we'll have less salespeople in the future. There's no doubt about that, but they have to be better. Dollars for a salesperson, let's remove your worst performer and let's invest in actually the technology to boost the performance of your team. And what Paul's looking at here, most companies that we work with, they're not really aware of their win-loss ratio and or their targets, because they're pretty well trying to spray and pray and win new work. So I think what Paul's showing us here is the fact that, why opportunities are stuck in a pipeline, and then key areas as to, okay, well, let's look at how we can potentially improve the performance. And again, as you know, a lot of the times there's opportunities in the pipeline are actually not the right opportunities, and or they're going nowhere. So you could be here in another 90 days and they're still.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment on this, and just again, it's a philosophical comment. Sales is the ultimate game of long-term investment for short-term results. What I mean by that is especially in B2B complex sales, right? You are generally investing in a person and a territory and technology to be able to have them perform continuously and to do that well. The system you need to create is one of continual improvement. You need the baseline. You need the baseline. You need a sales process. You need a sales methodology and how you converse. You need that continual training. You need that continual coaching. And the people that say, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I'm too busy. I'm too busy working deals. Well, if you are too busy working deals and you're looking at your win rates and your win rates are down at 10 to 15%, that'll give you a reason why you're too busy working deals, right? Because you're losing too many. And so you do need to make a shift. And where we really fit is with that company that has said, I'm tired of doing this again and again. I'm tired of putting in point solutions that my salespeople are asking for that don't really help them, but I just, I'll spend $10,000 a year on them. We need something that fundamentally changes, fundamentally empowers, not changes, empowers the way we work with our best practices that we can do again and again and again, that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. And that is game changing for any company. And it's game changing for companies because they make that decision that we are going to commit to ongoing improvement. And that, Jason, you are a master at working companies with. And that's why we fit so well, right? It's are we going to commit? Have we felt enough pain that we want to make a fundamental shift? This is not a CRM platform you're looking at. This is a combination of a Jason Howes and a Membrain gets you that continual sales process that works, continual refinement of that sales process, continually holding yourself and others on the team accountability to excellence, and then measuring that in ways that make the sale better, not micromanaging. If you give a salesperson a path that they can follow to close more deals, generally they follow it.
Absolutely.
So and if you're not giving that path, or you're saying that path is willy-nilly, or you can take one of 17 paths, again, it's like calling 17 plays at once and then trying to audible off of those plays, right? Call the plays that work, set up the sales process that work, and make that happen.
Look, I mean, there's another way to flip this around as well, Paul. I mean, if we go back to the conversation about, what if we could get your top performers, 15 to 20% better, learn, put on the table what's working for them. Why are they doing so well? Look, potentially they got the good customers, and that's happened quite regularly lately. But I think the big thing, if you get together with the team and you build the systems and the process, as you said before, I mean, like at average 17 months average tenure at the moment, we need to make sure we're collecting all that information. So businesses need to take ownership of the data so they can build that platform. Like, it'd be fair to say, I would suggest that probably 8 out of 10 companies we work with don't have a sales process, or it's nowhere that can be used or built upon or followed. And I think that's the key area. What I love about the part you're showing now, Paul, is that, as said, this is really pulling back the covers, okay? There's no excuses for not using the technology. If someone expects to get paid on a weekly basis, well, then the expectation, which we can build into leading KPIs that can track the activities and the effectiveness and the outcomes, and it can show exactly where you're at and what needs to happen. And you think about this, if you're a CEO, all of a sudden, you're out, your sales, you got 10 or 20 people out on the road, right? Most people have got no idea where they're going. If you look in their calendars, there's no appointments. If you look in a pipeline, if they have one, there's probably a heap of opportunities. But again, what I love is that this offers the leader the opportunity to really scale and actually save time, save money, and be able to coach much more effectively. In theory, a lot of sales leaders that I talk to, and sales managers, have said they've never had any training or development. So it's really up to the leaders of the business and business owners to go, you know what, we have to give them better technology. And I think what you're looking at here is achievable within a very short period of time.
Oh, 100%. And setting that base foundation. And Jason, you know this, we have a philosophy that it's, build and grow. This is the type of stuff you can start small with. You can start small, and that's why we sell things in modules. Like we sell an active pipeline module. Most people just start with that with us because it helps them drive that sales process and that coaching, and then you can continue to add and take away as you go. But if you don't, because if you just throw, I've seen too many horror stories where people, and I know people get afraid of it, where they say, "Oh my gosh, sales, whatever CRM or whatever system, it's going to cost me, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm gonna blow it all away, and it's going to get wasted in implementation, and nobody's ever going to use it." I want to be the anti that company, right? And so it's really important that when you start to create these processes, that it's something that will be leveraged, that will be used. You could start simple. But if you don't start there, if you don't start and take a leap, then you get stuck. And you end up having that list. And sales leaders, I know the list. I've had the list, that pipeline list in Excel that has company name, person, next steps, and probability. And then you have a list of all of those. And then you're thinking, how on earth am I going to forecast off of this? And then this CEO and the business owner is looking at you like, okay, where's my profitability? Where's my ongoing forecast that I can actually manage the business by? If you don't start with a sales process and nail that, you're going to miss. And it's just or you're going to get lucky.
Oh, look, Paul, and you're right. And look, people can get lucky. I mean, if you look at COVID, I mean, anyone could sell because there was such demand. And right now, that's not there. So you're seeing the clear line in the sand at the moment as far as who's performing and who's not, and how many chances you need to give people. What I do love with Membrain, I'll just ask you if you could just double back to a couple of areas for me, please,
Yeah.
is in the coaching component of Elevate, which is the new section here. We love how you can see exactly where Daniel Day is up to. And obviously what I love about this platform is they get to build their own portal as well, because you want to get the buy-in from the salesperson. They've got to get in there. They've got to see the value that this offers to them. It's got to save them time. It's got to help them sell better. So, and I think, again, if we can do that and they're like, okay, the leader's interested in my skill set compared to, where I compare with best practice. And again, for me as a leader coming in and going, this person is spending 48% of their time on new business. That's great. But the other person here is spending 12% of their time on new business. And again, it's because a lot of salespeople are comfortable doing what they're doing. Right now, what companies need is for the salespeople to be uncomfortable because you're growing. And then, as Paul's showing us there, to be able to look at, well, who are the top opportunities and where are we at? Because I think now is the time that we need this information now. We don't need it in 6 months when things are going to be no different.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all information that it just takes doing, right? Doing your one-on-ones, meeting with people weekly, doing your coaching plans. It's very, I hate to say it, but the platform itself is not that complex. It is something that empowers and engenders discipline. So it allows you to do it on an ongoing basis. And that is the critical differentiation between a great salesperson and an average salesperson, is the choice to do these things on an ongoing basis. Like I'll say all of our top reps leverage this, and they leverage it really well to the point of this is their spot where they create all their journals. So they do journaling in here. They do their coaching plan. We do learning I'm going to go back here. We do learning programs in ours. So I can also create, and this is more of the upskilling. I can create learning platforms and learning courses. Again, one of the more advanced uses of this type of platform, that you can see how people are doing and you can score them and all of those different things in different areas. But at its heart, right? At its heart, when you start to dive in and look at Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis, you can tell he's somebody that is committed to meeting with his coach, does it on an ongoing basis. That is always, we have the sessions, they are put in there, they're documented. We're committed to documenting what our tasks are together and how we're gonna make this thing a reality, right? How we're gonna go after his goals. He knows exactly what his goals are, exactly how effective he's being with them. He's had a little bit of a fall off here in terms of creating, and he has never been good at discovery meetings, but frankly, he is making the most of those because he is getting out a lot of proposals and getting some great sales projects and closing enough business. So it's one of those things that it engenders a lot of discipline, and it does it because Daniel Day and his leader are on the same page. And I know you dive in with people, Jason, and do coaching through this platform. And I'll just ask that, how does that impact you when you can dive in and you understand everything about that person, the skills and behaviors, and then it's about kind of empowering them and seeing what we want to do next? How does that change the game for you?
It's a huge game changer, Paul. As I mentioned, like if I can't use Membrain with my clients, it makes it really difficult because of just the amount of information and data here, and as far as the coachability of having time to be able to coach effectively. And I think if you could just drill down to the performance and the leading KPIs there we've got, because right now I think that's a really important topic. And a lot of salespeople, because they've never really had anything to track their activities, they actually don't even realize the impact that it can have. I've gone to businesses and all the utes are in the driveway. I mean, the salespeople are not out there; they're doing customer service stuff. So, I think what I love when I'm using Membrain, and I use it every day, is that I can see my activities, I can see the calls or the emails, or the effectiveness and the outcomes, and building those leading KPIs. And when you build them, it really needs to align with the incentive that you're offering the salespeople as well. So it becomes like, if you're not doing the activities in the right areas, well, then that's going to affect you. But it's a coaching tool. It's not just you got to do it or you're in trouble. But it's like, well, make them aware of where the salesperson's at, and if it doesn't improve, well, then you can obviously coach for performance instead of waiting a year and then getting nowhere. Would you mind just dropping into the OMG part as well, Paul? Because I think that's really
Absolutely.
critical, and something we do with all our clients is to understand where each salesperson's at. Because sometimes you could be working through an opportunity in a pipeline, or the salesperson's struggling. If you can go back to the objective management group assessment, you can actually look at it and go, oh, hang on a sec. When we did the assessment, this salesperson, was really struggling in a particular area. And that way you can then go, because sometimes particularly if you're running a reasonable sized sales team, it's hard to keep up with everything that's going on. So what we really want to look at here is, okay, this person, was not really that great on relationship building. And as you mentioned before, well, where are we at in training them and getting them better? I think that's one of the key areas that I've noticed, is that most businesses don't have an ongoing professional development program or something that they can't use it in. And this is where I think the Elevate comes in for a lot of leaders. It's about helping and supporting your salesperson to succeed by giving them the tools and the strategies to do that.
Well, I'll make another sports analogy, which is, bad coaches tell someone to go out and tackle somebody, right? Decent coaches tell somebody, they teach somebody how to tackle, right? And tell them the points of the game when you should use it. Great coaches teach someone how to tackle, but then they understand the nuances and they look at how you, Jason, tackle. And they can say, oh my gosh, Jason, you're low in your shoulder too much. Your head is up. I would recommend you body position to this. And so it prevents you from getting a concussion, and also to help you, tackle more. You need to go in with more speed at this particular time. It's the difference between, and it's night and day. Each of those coaches is tackling, is talking about tackling, right? But how they're doing it is this allows you to be nuanced and focused and help people. The other one just demands you scream more, right? It just demands like, well, I told you to tackle somebody. Why didn't you do it? Right. And that's where you find a lot of sales managers at the end of and leader at the end of the quarter being like, well, I told you that we needed to sell this amount. Why didn't you do it? And from that.
No, and it's like having the GPS on the back now with all the sports people, They're tracking the analytics and the data to see how they're performing. Paul, just one other area there, if you don't mind. If we could look at the account growth
Sure.
pipeline analysis there. Sorry, just within Membrain, Elevate, sorry.
Oh, within Elevate, sure.
Yeah, because I think that's a key area we're talking to our clients at the moment is, again, it's about how can we strategically manage our existing accounts. And I think if you look at, account growth and sales projects, this is the opportunity for a pipeline to be able to see exactly, where that account is and what stage they're at. And this here for anyone watching it that we've been talking to about doing business together, this is the golden area of, hey, look, this is where this person's at. This is what's in their pipeline. And then one of the other things that I love was the fact that I was talking to someone the other day and they had a list of key criteria of what a strategic account looks like. And then this gentleman was giving me all the points that they look at. And I'm like, geez, I'd love to be able to put that into a scorecard for you, because the scorecard is also really helps make sure that the salesperson is not putting in opportunities or working on opportunities that actually don't meet the ideal client profile.
Yeah. And that is one thing that I love about Membrain, is that ability to create scorecards and do it across any any of our areas that we work on. And I'm showing right here, I'm diving in. Think of an account. We have prospecting, which allows us to do just very, cadence based, understand things and put in qualifiers. Again, the job to be done then of closing the business comes on. What does your pipeline look like? Your stages and steps. And then how do you manage and grow your best accounts out there? And how do you visualize them and understand where they are in the process? What are the desired outcomes or profiles? Anything that how do we multi-log or put them in, and who are we engaging with, and what are our key customer relationships? Wasn't planning on showing this, so I hadn't had it really well to fields on this. But the combination of those really just absolutely changes the game. And you can mix and match. If you have an account, if you have people that are focused on territory management and growing accounts, you can really empower them with things like yearly, what is our yearly focus if you want to, or you could set up processes that work very differently from that. Altogether, it really is tying into a growth platform and culminates with the individual that I can then look at and say, dang, Daniel Day, he's scoring really well, right? He's at the top of the class. We're coaching, working on a plan together, our quarterly plan, we're nailing it, and he has got a full pipeline and kicking butt. Or you can look at somebody as not so much, right? So absolutely, it's one of those things that builds on top of each other, and it really works well at each level of for each job to be done in the sales process.
Look, that's some great work there, Paul, and I think from a strategic account point of view, you think about it like, a lot of us have been in sales for a long time. I think I'm about similar to you, about 35 years. But a lot of the good people are also, getting to a stage now where they're like, I don't know how much longer I want to do this for, and hey, look, I'm all for that, because there's more to life than work, that's for sure. And I think more importantly, where businesses need to go, okay, let's get all this critical information. Let's get an expectation, because you think about it, we're going to trust a salesperson with a $50 million account that we've had for 25, 30 years. Well, then we want to make sure that we're crossing off or everything here to make sure that that's being managed correctly. And if there's something that happens within that or a step that the salesperson misses, it will actually alert the sales leader and go, hey, George, Frank missed this opportunity or hasn't done the quarterly meeting or hasn't done a sales and marketing alignment presentation. Because I think that's the thing, sales leaders and business leaders have got so much going on. We need to simplify everything by taking the ownership off you and using technology and automation. Again, I'll go back to the point that I honestly believe that some companies have got too many salespeople. You would have a better return on investment by having less but better, but using the technology and automation to run your business. And I think that's the great dividing range at the moment, because probably 8 out of 10 salespeople right now will not successfully win new business or successfully promote new products because they're missing those vital elements of process and systems and tools. And I think, again, that's why we put everyone through the Objective Management Group assessment, because we want to understand, we want to know the DNA of each person so we can help them in the areas where they're struggling. And without doing that, salespeople will continue to struggle unless there's, as you said, some sort of critical market change that all of a sudden increases demand.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Well, and thank you for the time here, Jason. I really have appreciated the time together and diving in. Hopefully it's helpful to everybody that's viewing. Hopefully it's helpful. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. Jason, down in Australia, you are the Membrain expert. So I know people should be reaching out to you on this for a lot of questions. And if they want to dive in with me as well, I'm happy to have that conversation with them.
No, thanks very much, Paul. I do appreciate it. And look, for me personally, I learn every day. And that's the part of being someone that wants to grow. And I think, sometimes we work with companies and leaders and they're like, we got it covered. But as I mentioned, how much, what does it mean to get your best performers working better? And I think the other thing too is, if you have a look at it just quickly, is that to retain top performers now, I think that's a critical area, because they are moving. People are taking your top performers. Again, more reason to have everything in your system and your tools and your process so that they are replaceable. No one's irreplaceable, but it can leave a big hole in your business. We've seen it many times. So yeah, again, really appreciate your time, Paul.
Absolutely. One last comment there. Top performers are more likely to stay if you give them a formula. You give them the formula for success and the tools that they need to have it, and just allow them to do it on repeat. And that is one thing that is really critical. And I know you're working hard with sales leaders to make that.
You're right. And I think the other thing too is that non-performance shouldn't be tolerated. And I think a lot of the times business leaders are like, well, there's no one better else out there, which I don't agree with. There are better salespeople out there. They just don't have industry experience that you're looking for. But I think I'd rather teach someone product knowledge or industry knowledge than being able to teach them to sell.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. Happy to be a part of this. And anybody, please reach out at any time.